202. All right, well, it's 2:02, so we'll get started. Thank you for coming this afternoon to Cerulean Arts Tour and Talk for the Tabletop Medley exhibition. So this exhibition features the work of Alex Cohen, Caroline Vaughan Goodman, Elizabeth Heller, and Marie Davis Samohod. So thank you to the artists for being here, and thank you for your fine work. It's a beautiful show. You should know that the gallery is open. We are open our regular hours, Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 6. So you're more than welcome to come and see the show. We keep the occupancy to 10 people, and you have to wear a mask. If you like to make an appointment, you can, but you don't need to. And we do have a parking lot, which comes in handy. You can also see all the work from the exhibition on our website. And I'll put a link to the site in the chat at some point. So everything's there, and you can even shop online, and we ship, or you can pick things up. So we try to make it easy for you. And the work is so beautiful in the show. I imagine you'll, be eager to do that. So what we're going to do is tour the exhibition, and with our phone. So if you want to, I'm going to spotlight the Cerulean Arts video. And we're going to walk through, and then the artists will speak about the works that we're seeing at each segment of the wall. And I wanted to let you know that we are recording this for posterity. We're going to put it on our YouTube channel. And if you could stay muted during the tour so we don't hear background noise, and we'll take questions after the tour component. So that's the plan. So this is the first group of work. There's Liz Heller, Alex, Marie, and Caroline lined up 1 to 4. So would any of the artists want to be the first to speak? Okay, Liz is going to launch. Oh, Liz, you're muted. You want to unmute yourself?
I just did.
Yep.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. And thank you to Mike and Tina for organizing the show and hanging it. And I'm really happy to be part of it. I like everyone's work. And it's really nice to be in a still life show because I love still life. So I am a painter and a sculptor. I work from life. I've been painting for longer than I've been sculpting, but I still love both and do both. And I went to the academy and got a certificate before that became obsolete. And I also went to a number of other schools, Community College of Philadelphia, which has an excellent art program. I feel very happy about that. I graduated from there first and then went to the academy. And in general, my paintings follow the seasons. When I can be outside, I paint outside. And in winter and hot weather, I paint inside. And I set up still lifes in my studio using flowers and plants from my garden, and sometimes sculptures that I've made will become part of the painting. So this painting, I was trying something new, which was to use a dark surround for the objects. I had been looking at a book of Spanish still lifes from the Baroque period, and in particular, the paintings of Juan Sanchez Cotan really spoke to me spiritually and visually. And I really wanted to do something where the objects seemed to come out of dark. And also, without realizing it, they have similarities, like the marks on the pumpkin, the glass pattern, and the black and white pattern and the old crumpled grayish pink scarf all have like a visual affinity from their shapes, which is something that that means a lot to me. So that seems long enough perhaps, or for that one, or?
Sure, thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
So Alex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your
Thank you for including me in this show. It's nice to kind of escape the strange solitude of this year and to be in a group show. And this piece didn't quite, or almost didn't escape. It was, I guess, lost in the mail for a little bit, but I'm glad it found its way. I work, well, I graduated from the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts and also was in the certificate program overlapping with Liz. But I live outside the city now in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. The majority of my work these days is coming from the studio. That's more or less an intuitive process of invented pieces. And I try to balance that out with working observationally. And so one becomes kind of the pressure release for the other. If I'm, too much in my own head for a while, it's really nice to just let my eyes kind of regain some equilibrium. And I'm often working from still life for that purpose. And this piece has this wonderful mocha that I found at our local flea market, the Golden Nugget. And I was thinking a lot about it in preparation for talking today, that there's so many things that are captivating me or wanting my attention to paint, and just unfairly less time in which to paint them. And so those motifs or subjects that do get worked upon do become sort of this means of concentrating and being kind of the ambassador for all the things that don't get painted. And the wonderful kind of simple apparatus of that mocha espresso maker interrupts the process of the steam combustion and forces the steam through that concentrate of coffee grounds to create something unique and separate from its origin. But it's similar to the way in which the still life itself is kind of this interruption from that flow of inspiration, that you kind of force everything through and get this concentrate of a visual idea. If that's not too esoteric to say, but yeah, I hope that's sufficient.
Thanks, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
So next is Marie. Marie, you'll want to unmute yourself. Oh, you muted yourself. Oh, there you go. Wait, one more time.
There you go. Thanks. Thank you for helping the technologically little challenge there. Yes, I also graduated from the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and I've been painting for over 40 years. I usually paint in acrylics, but recently during, I guess with the pandemic, I've done a lot of work on paper, and I work in watercolor and gouache, acrylic and pastel. This painting, I also, when I work, I paint the appearance of the object to me, rather than necessarily, how correct the object is. And for this painting, I used a lot of brush strokes to create movement and energy. Just a very loosely done background, almost goes back to my abstract days. So I kind of drift in and out of, and I always focus for some reason, very close up on the subject and the object to scrutinize it, I guess. But yes, so this is Topiary Bunny, and just again, kind of playfulness, liveliness with the brush strokes. I guess that's it about that one.
Thanks, Marie.
You're welcome.
So next is Caroline.
Hi there. I'm Caroline Goodman, and I'm so honored to be in the show because everybody's work is so beautiful. The very first memory I have in my lifetime of any memory is of drawing a picture of a chicken sitting on her eggs and confused enough to put them in a bird's nest. But I went from there to major in art, fine art at the University of Alabama. And then life threw me a curve, and I didn't paint for many years. I had to go to work. And but I never lost my desire to be a painter. And as soon as my children were raised, I said, I'm out of here. I'm looking for what I want to do. And I moved, ended up going to several Northeastern cities. And I studied in Washington, D.C. at Corcoran. I went to New York City. I studied at the Art Students League. I worked a long time with Wolf Kahn, and I really enjoyed that. But anyway, y'all don't want all that, but that was just a way of introducing myself. I too am a painter from life, and I'm a representational artist, but only do I use I can't say that word all of a sudden. I'm tongue-tied being on this, but anyway, I use realistic things only as a vehicle for paint. It's paint that I love. It's the actual paint itself. I love light. I express myself best in my color relationships. That's really important to me. And I too, I don't know if I said this, like somebody else said, I'm a painter from life. I paint what I can see, and not because I'm scared of painting others, but it's kind of some parameters to work in. So that's all that you ever wanted to know about me.
Thank you, Caroline. So we'll continue through, and I'll lob in a few questions here as we go. Maybe ask the artist to focus on particular things. In this grouping, Liz, maybe you could talk a little bit about your color choices, your palette. Are they strictly from life, or how do you put things together color-wise? And you want to unmute?
Yeah,
There
that's a really good question, Michael. First of all my colors are totally from life. And I have many colored things. We have many colored things here, colored glass, beautiful glass from Cerulean, among other places. And things that are sparkly appeal to me. They always have. So I find things when I'm out walking, like the pine cone is a gold Christmas ornament. And that gold foil is a tea container from Lipton's tea. They come in these, and then I just kind of crinkled it and it looked really neat. But I guess one thing about color that I find works for me is having earth colors with more saturated colors, because I think that the combination makes both sets of colors more interesting. So the painting in the book is a painting by Balthus, who was a wonderful painter in my opinion. And he tends to use mostly earth colors with a few tints that seem like old painting, like fresco painting or painting from Pompeii. And those types of colors with the brilliant colors that I have around me, they seem to be more interesting than just all brilliant or all earth. This is just my opinion. But it's a matter of dominance. Like I think some things in painting are dominant and some things are supportive. And having a combination of dominant and supporting elements put together in the right way makes a more unified painting. So that's what I'm searching for. And this painting it had a feeling in it of being like I thought of it as a tarot card, because all year long, this year that we've had, I've thought of fate and how our fates are intertwined, and yet no one knows what the card is going to turn up. And that's both mysterious and, frightening and also joyful in a way. So I wanted to make a painting that had that unknown in it. So the man, his back is turned. That's a sculpture I did. And the girl's reading, maybe she's thinking about him, maybe she's thinking he looks good or something. And anyway, that's all. That's all.
Yes, composition is very important here also.
Yeah.
So Alex, I had the same question for you about your palette, which is very different. And it has I can't quite put my finger on it, it's a very sense of realism, but grayed out. It's almost photographic but observational at the same time. So, or it could be like from the 30s. I'm not, I'm going back and forth in time when I look at your work.
I like the sound of that. Yeah, I'm not sure that the color in these is similar to the way I'm feeling the light in the room, where there's just that kind of Gothic filtered raking light that is very soft, and it feels kind of fleeting, or that that it is hard to really put one's finger on. And so I'm kind of just often finding myself fussing with those modulations, just trying to get that kind of the feel of the air in the room. And, after a lot of fussing goes on, you're working mostly with the feeling of the surface of the painting, and the color seems to be becoming more about just the look of the surface, not of the subject. And maybe that's where that elusiveness comes from. But I guess both they're similarly, the subject becomes kind of a breach in the space of the table, of the substrate, that kind of actually allows the darkness of the room to spill into it, like a little puddle, rather than the inverse of the subject kind of being the spotlight or the place to gather the light. It becomes this place to empty out the light, if that makes sense.
Yes, I mean, there's a lightness, but there's also a heaviness at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to invite the other artists, if they wanted to chime in, and if they had questions for each other or comments as we go, to feel free to do that. So Liz, Alex, Caroline, and Marie. So Marie, we have one of yours here on the left, and your work has a very whimsical quality to it. If you want to unmute, there you go.
There you go. Yes, this particular painting, I think being in so much with the pandemic, I really set up a lot of objects that have memories for me and emotional attachment. The little bowl was a bowl that I had gotten Little Cranberry Island in Maine one summer when I went up to paint. And the snail shells were from a beach that we painted. And I've have a little bit of a collection of these statuary birds, and I've been adding them to some of the still lifes, almost like a symbolism. They're very still, they're very silent, and yet it's a creature that is out and about. But for the still life, they are sedentary. For this painting, I used a lot of lines to create texture, and the opaqueness of the gouache on the table and the bowl and the bird, and yet the background, I kept it very light, very awash, little fleur-de-lis. I like to have movement in the paintings. I like to feel like their liveliness. And I guess the choice of color, the blue, the orange, getting into color theory there. But yes, it's the still life. I've done a lot of still lifes this year, and I think it's from all the objects that I've collected. When we go places, you pick up a little shell or things, and you'll see that in another painting in the show.
Yes, they're still, but they're very lively at the same time. So as we're moving along, so Caroline, when I see your painting, I really feel that it's someone who just loves to paint, to work with materials, and enjoys, you know, the surface and the color and all that.
Thank you. I do. I do. I wanted to ask the artist that you just talked to a question before we get stuck on mine. You used the word whimsical with her art, and I thought that was such a wonderful word. And I wondered if that word whimsical meant something special to her.
I took it like that it's sort of imaginatory, not necessarily what you see, but taking it a step further, sometimes in a fun, magical way. I take it positively.
Oh, of course.
Thank you for your question.
Yes.
I absolutely meant it as a compliment. I love the word whimsical because the word whimsical translates to me as wonder. And I think we all need more wonder in life. So I liked that word.
We all feel wonder when we're painting.
Absolutely.
Painting. That's a beauty.
I too I appreciated what Michael said. And you know, I think the most interesting thing to me, or not interesting, but one thing that I get so excited about and get so into, to me, a color isn't a color into itself. A color is only a color in relationship to something else. So it's a lot of fun to me to see what kind of relationships I can build up, and I can use to see what that color in that setting really is. And even in the still life, I kind of like to have, I feel like I try sometimes in my latest paintings I've been doing, I've really gone more into trying to, and I did in this painting, I start trying to, even in a still life, have the feeling of movement. Some things are still, but somehow I try to suggest movement. And I lost my train of thought just then, but that's enough for now.
I'd say there's definitely movement here. You know, I mean, you've got like a combination of like stillness and then fast in terms of your mark making that really moves the viewer across the surface.
I wanted to say I love the way that it has a real feeling of life, and the colors are really beautiful. And I do understand what you mean about them being not individual or local, because they translate into other objects around the painting. The objects feel light, like you've lightly set them down, but very well seen. And I just think they're very beautifully seen.
Thank you. I want to say one other thing. I have a real belief that all of us, all humans, are related to each other. We're all in relationship with each other. We're really not separate beings. And I try in my paintings, through the color more than any other way, that everything in my painting is related, that they have meaning together. So that's all.
Thanks, Caroline. So we're just moving through a series of smaller works here. It's Marie, Liz. If any of the artists wanted to speak about anything particular about a particular piece, just feel free to let us know. So Liz, you're working with reflection here.
Yes, well, this painting was right before, we all had to stay home, but it was after I was able to be outside painting in the landscape. And I finished this landscape that was a 2-year project, and it took everything I could have to do it, and I really like it, but I sort of left afterwards. I kind of felt like, what am I going to do? And I came back inside and I thought, one thing I'm never bored by things that have like flowers or scarves or objects that have articulation, I guess is the best way to put it. So I felt like the cut velvet scarf and the candle holder and the dianthus all have a similar quality of shape. See, if you see the stems and the little candle holder and the way the interlocking forms of the scarf, they had some sort of meaning together. And then I wanted to have, going back in space, have an interesting space that was subordinate to the foreground, that sort of, and yet all those objects sort of fit together. The little mini pumpkin and the pink glass and the green vase have a similarity in shape. But then as you look back in my studio, which was always the dining room of my house, that's a sculpture I made that somehow has a really strong meaning, because when I graduated from the academy, I had to go back out to work, and I didn't have anywhere near enough time to work on my artwork. And she was there for me in the morning before I'd go out to work. I'd work early because I am a construction worker. And I'd see her and she was like saying, this is important, this art is the most important thing to you, and you will survive paying back your student loan. And you will become a full-time artist at some point in your life. So that whole thing had a lot of meaning to me. And in fact, most still life objects have meaning. They have, like Marie was saying, they pull in from your life. And that's part of the richness, that I can't communicate directly. It's not a story, but it's a reverberation of meaning that I think makes still life a wonderful genre. So that's all.
Thank you, Liz. We're going to move to the other side of the wall now. So there's a Caroline and Marie. Marie,
Yes.
Can you speak about this piece?
Yes. I sort of began a series of window scenes from interiors, looking out. Windows sort of became important to me this year. And also, I liked the way it was just a fraction of the window. I mean, windows are, you see the whole world. And the tablecloth I added, or the background, the floral, the print I added, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Mary Cassatt when she was inspired by Japanese block prints. It gives a very flatness, and then juxtaposed against the roundness of the pears.
Yeah, that's it. What about start video?
And I thought the pattern gave it a liveliness, the reds and greens bouncing off each other. I guess this is one of the series. I think there's another one in the show that is one of my window series.
It's a gouache, yes?
Pardon me?
It's a gouache.
It's gouache, yes.
It's a little looser for a gouache than some people use it. You get a nice range of effect here.
Yeah, it's hard for me to be tight, more controlled sometimes. Perhaps I just don't have it in me. I don't know. But
That's just your style.
yeah. Perhaps all the years I spent teaching elementary school children to art, they rubbed off on me.
Oh, so you were a teacher.
Yes.
So next to Marie's is one of Alex's. Alex, would you speak about this piece?
Sure. I just also wanted to compliment Tina on your camera work, which is, I'm sure, a challenge to convey the show this way, but you're doing a great job.
Her arms are getting stronger every time.
I'm actually sitting at this table that I often am painting still lifes upon, and I just love, it's kind of a worn red enamel, and I was thinking how the artist Albert Kresch a couple years ago had said to me regarding a still life painting that this is a painting where the table says, "I'm the subject." And I loved his voice and emphasis in that, but it also is what I was most excited by was just this wonderful kind of abstract avenue of the red negative space between the subjects there, or the red being the subject if Albert's right.
Yeah, I love the transition between the flatness of the red and then the modeling of the objects, and then you get to the edges of the canvas, and then there's the canvas. You know, so the focus changes also from illusion to object.
I absolutely love your edges on your paintings. They just are incredible.
Thanks. This is a wonderful waxed fabric sandwich wrapper that I was quite in love with, and just the organic kind of happenstance of its articulations, and the wax gives such a nice feel to the edges it makes, and this both hard and soft creases.
Looks like there's a button on it.
Yeah, it has a nice little button and a string. You can wrap your sandwich or your apple up in it.
it's very satisfying as an object, I think.
I think your compositions are really nice.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a hard time finding them. They sort of feel like they get revealed towards the end of the piece.
It's a beautiful painting. Really like it a lot.
Now we have one of Caroline's. So this is a quieter composition than some of the others.
I I'll paint a long painting that takes me quite a while. Am I muted or am I talking? Yeah,
We're talking.
You're talking.
We hear
Oh.
you.
and I'm sorry.
No, we want to hear you.
I paint longer paintings that I really evolve in I mean, they take a really long. I will say this, I paint at least 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. I made a promise to myself to be disciplined and to really try to express myself. And anyway, then after I've hassled with a bigger one and a longer one, I'll go to these smaller, simpler ones. And sometimes I almost find much more satisfaction from, say, the smaller one like this one. It is, to me, it almost makes my eyes rest. And I'm glad for the rest. And it's fine. It's fun just finding 1 or 2 objects, or maybe 3 at the most, and painting that the best I can. And so thank you.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Caroline, I love the scale in that piece with this delicate little flowers make the fruit kind of colossal.
So Marie, we have a larger piece by you here.
Yes, Fanciful Roosters. I had gone out one day for a walk and a neighbor down the street was having a yard sale. No one was there and I felt safe enough to go up, and I found these little roosters at it. And I came home to paint, and it's sort of, I kept the roosters very gestural lines and with some of the white of the paper showing. And then the focus, almost like they're standing guard on the centerpiece of the flowers in the mason jar. And then the background is all this foliage that sort of points to the subject matter in a very washy, transparent way. So I just sort of was having fun with it that day. I felt happy that I had gotten out. It was a nice day, and that I made a purchase. My 2 roosters for $10.
Yeah,
So
I love your paint handling here. It's very free and gestural.
thank you.
And the roosters definitely have personality. So does the jar. You know, everything, you know, is very lively. So do you do these in like one shot, or do you come back like after?
I work on paper usually is like, maybe 2 different sittings, 2 different days. Now my acrylic canvases take longer, but work on paper, sometimes I'll leave it and then go back to it later, revisit it. I'll be working on a couple things at a time. But for this one, I think I'd say, 2 days. A little bit more time on the mason jar and the flowers, and then the drawing, and then the background was sort of very quickly done.
Thank you.
I think that is a beautiful painting.
Thank you.
So Alex, you also have unique frames, or like found frames for your work. Or do you plan that, or is it by chance?
They're actually handmade frames.
Oh, how about that?
Wow.
And they are sometimes made alongside the painting. So if the painting gets to a certain level, and I'll work on the frame to see where its home is going to be, and try to marry the two. And I'm often, in my more invented pieces at least, will be kind of painting more of the painted edge to reestablish that sense of the rectangle and of the frame. But the framing has been very important to me, just because I do have a hard time recognizing composition, and to continue to bring myself back to the rectangle is often helpful, just to give myself some breadcrumbs back to the sense of it being an artifact. But this is the architecture of the frame is a Robert Kulick design, and then it's a gessoed and painted frame, distressed.
So
I think a lot about the distressing of these frames, that the sense of time that oil painting gives seems to have a nice conversation with a frame that has some petite patination to it.
yeah, it's very integral to the piece.
Do you paint the painting in the frame? Or do you just frame when you're painting your painting?
Sometimes it goes back and forth, and I like to not have a pristine frame, such that if I do get paint on it, or if it gets dinged up, it only kind of adds to it. But and in this case, there was the painted frame, and then the lattice exterior frame.
It gives them, in some cases, almost an ancient quality. And I mean this in a good way, that it's something that you could have, excavated as like an ancient piece, and, dusted it off, and it's got this quality to it. But then all of a sudden it's very contemporary at the same time. So that's what I think I meant when I'm toggling back and forth between the here and now and then, and the illusion and the object.
Thank you. I look a lot at antiquity to kind of reinforce a sense of framing ideas, that there is such a different and early sense of privileging the framing of pieces, even in wall frescoes, or in carved stone niches. But this sense of the housing, of that the rectangle as a house, is kind of feels more of an ancient concept.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a beautiful relationship between the past and the present.
They calm you so nicely,
Here we have one, Liz, one of your paintings again.
Well, I wanted to make a painting that had abstract strength, and also every object was observed to my maximum at the time. And the purple scarf was really hypnotic when I painted it because it was hard to remember which row and which circle. And it actually teaches you something about pulling your mind back to focus. So I feel like that's such a strong thing graphically that keeping it from overwhelming everything else was hard, you know, but everything like has a sort of a unity in shape, like the curving shape of the edge of this green glass is similar to the kind of flag-like, you know, embossing on the olive oil bottle. And then the little jade plant, it's so pitiful, but it had such a beautiful shape, you know, like this old root. And then it just had such a joy in it to be alive, even though it was really, you know, kind of not a very strong looking plant. And everything felt like a unity to me, the colors and the forms, and then that's an African fabric, and it has a rhythm in it like African drumming and fabric has, which I really love. And so that just kind of stopped it from everything just moving off the rectangle and staying in balance, I guess. So that's all.
So Liz, when you arrange these, it seems like you carefully compose your objects. Are you drawing this as well at the same time, or like how do you set about creating the painting?
Well, that's a really good question. I never draw objects anymore because I just feel like I can do better if I just paint, but I spend a long time setting them up, and a lot of times they aren't right. Sometimes I'll even paint half the painting and then I know that they're not right. But it's a totally unconscious process. It's almost like a hunger, you know, like you put something in one place and it doesn't feel right, and you have a hunger to put it in the right place. So you move it, but then something else is off. So you put a different color behind it, or you shed a different light on it. And all of that is to keep it moving like in an organic way. But it's all unconscious to me. So at the end, I'll say, oh, that's like that and that's like that. But that's not how I'm thinking about it when I'm doing it. I'm trying to, it's actually like an emotional process to me. You know, painting is an emotional statement, a spiritual statement, which is unique to each person. And yet, as Caroline was saying, it hints at our universal connection, which I thought was a really profound thing that Caroline said. And so that's what the way I'm doing it is trying to hint at that universal connection that we have and that the objects have, and get it, you know. And then lots of times it doesn't work, but I do like this painting, so I'm glad for it. So.
So do we.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful painting.
Thank you.
So Marie, we have, this is another of your window views.
Yes, this was one part of the one of the paintings in the series of windows, you know, framing the outside world and, you know, giving a little intimacy to the objects inside. The sunflower, I did this in September. The sunflowers were the last from the garden. And then we have shells that I collected on some of our trips. And there's another statuary bird from a trip. And then the corner is a frame of my husband and I on a trip that we had taken. And you can see that I was really thinking back to all these places that we had been and places I was able to paint at and get inspiration. And after being closed in and knowing September, we were facing another winter. And I was actually, the light was pretty that day, but I was feeling kind of melancholy, but I don't know why. This seems like a happy painting, but I was a little melancholy that day, but it came out sort of happy. And this is acrylic on canvas.
It's beautiful. I like that there's a textural change here. There's like more paint on the flowers, which gives them a three-dimensional presence against the leaner window and view.
Yes. When I do paint in acrylics on canvas, I tend to build up my colors and have some impasto painting. And so I do use a lot more paint when I'm painting with the acrylics on the canvas, and it takes longer and it builds up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So these are the last two works of the show. This is a Liz Heller. And then we have Caroline. Caroline, do you have anything about this painting?
Not too long ago, I decided I did not understand white paint. I kind of feel like, and I'm talking about not my brain, but my gut. I kind of feel like I understand other colors, but I decided I did not understand white, and I wanted to understand it. And so the only way to understand it is to paint it. And then an artist friend of mine suggested not to use so much white paint. And then I thought, well, the way to understand something is by not understanding it. But anyway, this was a painting to understand white. And actually, there are more other colors, but I use the orchids because they are white. And again, I tried to show in a very still life that there's movement, there's light bouncing on and off stuff. And even at the bottom where the orchids are not quote unquote white, they still feel white like orchids. I mean, only maybe in the shade or something. I don't know. And I just wanted to say something about the artists that are painting those wonderful window paintings. In my trying to understand white, I started studying all these Northern European painters because I figured with all their snow paintings, they understood white better than anybody. But anyway, all these Northern Europeans paint these wonderful window paintings. And I have fallen in love with window paintings. So.
Thank you, Carolyn. And thank you to all the artists. It's a beautiful show.
I just want to say that the work is hung so beautifully. Each work just is right where it should be next to the other artists. And I feel very, it's a gift to be in a show with all of you. Thank you.
Well, Tina did the layout for the show, so
Bravo, Tina.
okay.
They're a real gift to hang in a show. That is a gift.
I just wanted to say I'm calling from Florida, and my husband and I have been watching and enjoying this so much. And we are really sorry we can't be there to see the whole show. It's beautiful. And I love all the artists and their paintings. It's just wonderful.
Thank you. And thanks again for coming. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Nice being with everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Leave.